Hey, this is Jeff Waters from the Canadian metal band Annihilator, and you're listening to the one and only Target Audience Magazine with Better Be Sharp.
A suicide society, we've all gone bloody mad. Welcome to the dark side, the human race, crumbling before us, ending in disgrace.
So your record company is UDR, right?
Yeah.
And so how, I don't want to ask you directly, how do you feel about them? Because obviously, if you felt horrible about them, you probably wouldn't be with them. And
well, no, you sign a contract. If you felt horrible about them, you might still have to be with them. But yeah, go ahead.
So I heard something about from an interview in 2012 you did, talking about being basically a musician's advocate, helping known bands out of crappy record or endorsement deals. So can you tell me, are you still doing stuff like that? Is that something that you're working on? And if so, how does that kind of go?
You know what? It's kind of weird because there's a lot of, let's say Annihilator are not very, very popular in North America, our own country, Canada. We have underground following here and in the States. That's always an easy term to say, underground following. But we haven't been putting records out in North America. Most of our records didn't come out on a proper release here. We haven't been touring, and there's reasons for that, and it's not the fault of metal fans or being too good to tour here or money or anything. Money, yes, because we're not getting any promotion or tour agents wanting to book us, and if they do, it's always crooked deals where, I have to hire my band, and I could get into that whole story later. But where are we? Put me on track.
Musicians advocate, helping bands out of record endorsement deals.
Yeah, and memory loss from an old aging musician here. It's the musicians here know me. Maybe a lot of the fans don't, but a lot of musicians and bands know me because I meet up with those bands overseas in Europe every year. So one band somebody might know in the States might go, yeah, Machine Head, I love that band, but who's Annihilator? Whereas Annihilator and Machine Head would be common names overseas, and we would know each other and play shows together and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of the guys from the States and Canada in these bands would get a hold of me, in this, maybe around from the year 2000 to about 2010 or 2012, 13, would get a hold of me and ask me, hey, listen, I've got a contract with a manager or a guitar company or a publishing company or a merch company or a tour agency company. And it's an agreement, and I was wondering, can you at least look at it and just tell me if I'm screwed or not? I would get into it. And I basically, a band called Exciter that was a Canadian band that's still going.
Right.
So part-time still going. They're reunited. The original guys are still doing on and off shows now this year. A friend of mine, Dan Beeler's the drummer in the band and singer. And it's, I don't know what year, but in 2005 or whatever it was, I went to a bunch of different record companies of their past and got a whole pile of their catalog albums back and turned around and, which was really difficult, but I figured out how to talk to record companies and how we could work it out. And I turned around and basically for them sold that catalog back to one of their homes in the early days, Megaforce, and they got a pile of money for that. And bands like a lot of people don't know, I actually technically was signed as Anvil's manager for half a year before their movie came out, and my job was pretty much just to get their catalog back, and I got a bunch of their records back, and then took them to different labels to see if they wanted to, relicense or buy them off the band kind of thing and get them a deal for it. And they could trust me because I kind of got a reputation of, just having a good, honest lawyer that I work with, and the team of me and the lawyer can go in there and represent musicians. And I was really getting into that role because it was kind of helping getting people out of bad guitar endorsements or renegotiating them. There was one very well-known guitar player that had guitars in every music store everywhere in the world, and they've been in there for 10 years at least. And I was amazed when I talked to this guy that how much money he was not getting, and he was literally trying to get money off his manager for his rent, like not even owning a house or a car, and just trying to borrow money off the manager's rent. And I was like looking at the guy going, you should be making 5 to 6% off the sale price of that guitar, and you should be worth about $3 million right now. What in the hell is going on? And basically, instead of suing and causing all these problems, just got in there and renegotiated the contract on the spot, and the guy got paid a fortune. And he should, because he's well known. He's worked his ass off on guitar, and he's got some amazing guitars out there, and he's getting ripped off. So I got kind of passionate about that, but then as soon as my Feast record came out, we've been climbing slowly in sales and popularity. As soon as the Feast record came out, I realized I just did not have time to do this anymore. So I kind of did my good karma, positive helping out thing for quite a few years there, and now it's back to my time. Things are starting to get very busy and positive in the last few records for us, and now it's just like forget everything else. No songwriting for other publishing companies and TV shows and helping bands out. Now it's my time. Don't have much time left, I'm 49.
Oh, you'll be going for a while. I have a few more questions before I let you go, if everything's still good.
Hey, this is coming up to a 1-hour interview.
Listen, I love that.
I think you got to do like 18 parts and bore everybody.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, they're bored after 18 minutes, easy.
I'll probably clip it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Give it to them in pieces, a little bit, like a 6-course.
You're going to need a disclaimer, something to warn people. Listen, if you really want to go to sleep, actually, we had a DVD. We have a DVD out from years ago in the 2006 era, and it was called Annihilator, 10 Years in Hell, and it was supposed to be sort of the anniversary of, anyway, it was the first 10 years kind of vibe, and it featured a lot of the ex-musicians coming on there and talking about the band and their time in the band. And it was really funny because two of the musicians, or one of the musicians specifically, who I thought was would not mind that I use his appearances, performances, and shows and film clips of him. I didn't sign him up. I should have technically got him his permission to use his quote image and likeness. You have to get image and likeness permission to use people's face or picture, or especially their live performance. If they're playing on a song, you need to have something in writing with them, or they can actually stop you from releasing that.
Right.
And this one son of a gun tried to blackmail me and said that if you don't give me this much money, you can't have anything to do with me or my playing on your DVD. And the funny thing was, it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, are you serious? This is your sort of mini legacy here. This is stuff you've done and great work that you've done. Why would you not want people to see that? Well, I would love people to see it, but I want X amount of dollars. And it was ridiculous. It was more money than the DVD probably ever made. And I had to yank all the footage or blur the guy's face out when I used pictures. And so I was forced at the last minute, because I had a contract with the record company to put out the DVD, and it was the distributor had the release date set, and I would get sued if I didn't release it. So I had to put a bunch of footage in there, and it became 10 Years in Hell was what it was like watching the DVD. You get through the first hour or the second hour. You know how it's been in this interview. Can you imagine me yapping for an hour? I just did. I'm yapping for an hour. There you go. I'm giving you 10 Years in Hell.
And you didn't have to pay that guy any money.
Speechless, eh?
Well, I will wrap it up with just the final few questions here. And one of those is that there's unsubstantiated, mind you, rumors that you have ghostwritten successful pop and country ballads. So I would like to either put this to rest, or just make sure it's no longer unsubstantiated.
I think, first of all, I did write a lot from 92 to 2005 or 6, something like that. And I did a lot of things like TV shows and things that people have heard. Not a lot of people. I mean, just not a lot of great things. I'm not one of these guys that was just like some super writer. Not like that. But I did write some things that some people would know here in North America, and then for some artists in Europe and things like that. But you're not going to ever know. So.
All right. Well, that's fair.
There's been lots of things around about that, but it's kind of like I always came out of that Slayer school where I was kind of in high school and after high school, where back in the day in North America, maybe somewhere else in the world, but in the States or Canada, way back in the day, if you were into to Slayer or metal, right when these bands were first coming out, Venom, Slayer, the first albums, all that. If you were into this thrash or speed metal, you wouldn't be able a few years later to wear a Skid Row shirt or a Bon Jovi shirt or a Loudness shirt or a Scorpion shirt or, that was just not metal. If you were around a bunch of Slayer fans, somewhere, and you were wearing a Bon Jovi shirt, for example, you'd be killed. That I don't mean killed, but there could be a fight. You know what I mean? That was back when everybody was divided, and I think that time was so funny because if I look back at pictures of the early Annihilator days, very early, before the first record, and look at Slayer's early days, Slayer would have makeup all over them, and I was wearing these stupid boots, looked like I was in Wasp, and I had spiky dyed black hair. I even know the hair coloring called Nice and Easy Blue Black was the color, and dyed my hair blue black and put so much loose gel spray, whatever. I was trying to look like Nikki Sixx. And I was in the band Annihilator. Look back at Pantera when they were, power metal days, back in the early days of Pantera, and you always look at that. But I find it so funny that back then, though, it was like, if you're into Slayer, you better not be wearing that, that Bon Jovi shirt, or you're going to die. You know what I mean? I didn't even know where this conversation was going, where it started from, but...
We're going right into the last question.
Yeah, we'll end it with my falling asleep on the couch here.
So there's a lot...
Not because of you, but I'm falling asleep the same reason anybody else that listens to it would be, is because I'm falling asleep to my own voice, rambling. So there you go.
There's a lot of people, especially guys that are getting into playing guitar for real in modern music, who, instead of doing things that are melodic, they tend to focus on how many notes they can cram in to a given second. And I was just curious, you seem to do a lot of both. You flow between melody and very thrash speed stuff for your solos. And I was just curious where you found the balance between the face-melting notes per second and the melodic aspect of it. Do you try to form your solos in a certain way with those in mind?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, I would plan out every solo. Everything was kind of planned out, and then I guess by the time I hit, I would say album number 6 or 7, I started saying, "Hey, wait a minute! A lot of things I've been reading, and my favorite guitar player in the history of the world, Eddie Van Halen, I finally clued in after decades that wait a second, when you see him or hear him on a record, on the earlier records, play a solo." That I and millions worshipped, and people of all different, non-musicians, musicians, talented musicians, non-talented musicians, clarinet players and drummers, almost everybody, and people who were not around then, and the internet was not around there. We're talking like you would see lineups in the stores when there was a guitar player or guitar player magazine or whatever coming out. People would know that in 2 months, Eddie Van Halen has an interview coming out in the magazine. You would see lineups in stores, bookstores, magazine stores, to get that magazine to hear what the god Van Halen said about his sound or how he gets this or how he plays this. This was a different time. You couldn't go online and see all this stuff. But he would play stuff back then, and he could probably never do the same solo twice. It was in Angus Young and guys like that, legends like that. It took me so long to clue in that these guys just hit the tape, rolled the tape, and everything that came out of them, mistakes and all, were feel and almost impossible to duplicate. And people would spend decades trying to duplicate what he was doing and didn't realize that he couldn't even do it. Like you see him play his solos, and he doesn't play them the same as he used to because that was a time, that was a second, that was a take, that was a captured part. Like a photograph, you can't recreate that photograph a year later or a day later or whatever. It was that. So that's what I started getting into, which is let's try the opposite. Forget about formatting and trying to go through bar by bar and getting each one perfect. And some people like that. We have some early stuff that is like that people love, and yeah, it's the best of both worlds. Sometimes you can try to really get something perfect, and then you can also just hit it and do it in one take.
And now you do it in one take?
Most of it for the soloing, yeah. I mean, what I like to do now, and one of the cool things about computer systems and that they've had for decades now is, when you're recording, you get the luxury of saying, okay, as long as my guitar's in tune, I can loop this thing and play this solo over and over again 3 or 4 times. And I can change it each time I do it. And then when I'm done, I've got 4 solos. I can listen to it and go, number 2, take number 2 was the best one. The second time I played the solo was the best. But I hit a crappy note right near the end. So what you can do is you can, instead of redoing it all because of one crappy note, you can grab that note from another take and just throw it in there and go, okay, I fixed the note. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but you're keeping the feel. You're not chopping it up and punching in like the old days and inching your way to perfection. You're actually just making it perfect because it's not, And that's another thing with the word digital recordings and with the word computer recordings. You can really create a robot and a feelless bad sounding monster. And I'm guilty of that too, because I have a studio and I'm a total techie freak when it comes to the engineering side of studios. I love plugins, equipment, preamps, compressors, limiters, effects. I love the whole process. Is like the funnest hobby for me. Like some people like skiing. I love working in the studio. Kind of not a healthy way to do it, but it's fun. But it's like there's so many toys, and you have to be very careful you don't get carried away with that stuff and keep something real in there. That's what I like about the Slayer record. It's got a lot of that realness to it, even though the drums are just really at the point of being too perfect sounding. They are brutally well done. There is a feel to that record. Everything about that has feel.
Yeah, and I haven't listened to the entire record. I've never really been a huge Slayer fan, but I did hear their single Repentless, and that was a really brutal song.
Yeah, the intro and the second and third song on the record, you could loop those 3 for a day. It's it's just, I forget the name of the third track on there. I'm assuming the first track is like the long intro, and the Repentless must be track 2, because I remember in the car just kept hitting rewind to on the CD player. And I was also blown away too. The new Slayer CD did something to me too. It was I've always had my iPhone. I always download through iTunes and buy stuff I like. I'm really picky about that. I will audition and sometimes download stuff, but if I like it, bang, I get it on iTunes instantly. It's just like I do it, right? And then this time I said for the cause, and it's not something I said to anyone, or I just told you you're the first person I told. I made a point to go and buy that CD in the store, and it sounds stupid, but I just felt like you had to support something like that. It's not just something I want to download on iTunes. I need that CD. I need to play the whole thing all the way through. I need the cover, and I want to put this in my car stereo like the old days. What I've been doing is I've just plugged in my iPhone to my wicked awesome car stereo and iTunes stuff, and you get so used to it. And then you put in a CD, and I put the Slayer CD, and I was completely blown away. For somebody like me who's probably mixed 100, 200 records, done the production for almost all the Annihilator records and a whole bunch of other stuff, the studio work, for me to sort of forget that when you put the CD, it sounds 10 times better than the iTunes formats and the MP3s and all that crap. It's amazing. You put the CD in, and it's like, wow, that's what it's supposed to sound like. It's quite a mind-blowing revelation. I've been so used to downloading iTunes and listening to that in my car that I've never played a CD in there for half a year.
Well, then Slayer's a good way to break that monotony.
Yeah, for sure. Slayer kind of really, I think it was 98 or so, Slayer was the band that got me out of a 2 or 3 year depressing metal slumber, whatever you want to call it. I just, as a metal fan, I just thought around, 96, 97, everything was just going to shit. I didn't like the music that was going on, other than Pantera and other than a couple other good bands. But it was just like, as a metal fan, where did metal go? Where did the 70s, 80s, especially 80s, and ending up with Rust in Peace and Painkiller and records like that, where did this go? What's happening? And it was very depressing as a fan. And then I saw Slayer in Vancouver. I think it was 98 or 99. And I thought, well, I'll go see the guys again, and because I'm a lifelong Slayer fan, I'll go. And they were playing a bloody club, and they had just played a few years back. They were selling out the arena in Vancouver. And here they are, slaving away to a 1,500-seater club, playing like they're playing in front of a stadium. They didn't give a shit. Slayer didn't care if there was one person or 10,000 or 20,000 people there. And that kind of, I went home after that concert and I kicked my own ass and looked at myself in the mirror and said, Jesus Christ, Waters, get your shit together. Look at these guys. They don't care about, sure, I mean, business-wise and money-wise to keep the band going. I'm sure they all care, but they don't give a shit about the venue. They are kicking ass like, and this is like 98, 99, right? When metal was so low on this totem pole here in the music business in North America.
Absolutely.
And look at them now. They're surviving. They lost a member. They changed a member, but they're like Testament, Exodus. You go through all these bands, Overkill, Annihilators. We all have common threads. We've all been around for a long time. We never quit and gave up and reunited 20 years later. We all change musicians. I was talking to Chuck Billy about this on the many times we play shows together in South America and Europe, and that is there's a small group of bands that have never ever stopped, and a lot of people go, Jesus, another lineup, another singer, another this, and a lot of people don't realize that the lineup changes for a lot of the bands I mentioned are not because a guy in the band is a total asshole, dictator, jerk, or anything. It's usually because the money in certain years and decades had been so low and there have been such few places to play that the bands could not afford to keep their members, or guys were just saying, listen, I can't afford losing money or not making money anymore. They had lives and families, and they just kept having to, Chuck and Eric from Testament, and Bobby and Dee Dee from Overkill, and Waters from Annihilator, and Exodus, Gary Holt. Everybody just forged forward with the member changes and did what they could to survive. And now, all the bands I mentioned now are reaping the rewards. People are finding out about the mid-level metal bands that never gave up and never quit and reunited later on, that had always been there the whole time, no matter what happened. And people are cluing into all this now. And bands like Testament and Exodus and them, Overkill are coming up with their best records in decades now. So, bang, there you go.
And I hope the same for you guys, because you guys just have been building your sales off the last few albums, and I hope this one does better than all of those combined for you.
Thank you very much.
And so it's been a pleasure talking to you, Jeff. Sorry I didn't let you get anything in there, but I don't want you to fall asleep before you get to somewhere that might be a little bit more comfortable. And I'm going to let you go, but of course, ask if you have any final things to say. We can, of course, mention that you're starting your European tour here at the end of September, and you said for 2 months you're going to be in Europe?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. A lot of dates, a lot of shows.
So check out, what's your website, by the way?
Screw it. We haven't been maintaining that thing. It's annihilatormetal.com, but we haven't touched that in a few years. I have to get my shit together and fix it. I've been a Facebook guy. You go on Facebook for Annihilator or Jeff Waters, and that's where it's all happening, man.
So check out Facebook with Annihilator and Jeff Waters' personal page, and you can get all the tour dates for that in Europe. And
hopefully someday soon there's a Canadian and U.S. tour happening.
Yeah.
We're working like crazy on it. We're trying.
I will do my best to make anything within a reasonable distance. The Atlantic is a little bit wide for me to commute to. But
right on.
Is there anything else coming up?
Nope, just the tour cycle stuff. So we got all the I'd say that it sounds like I'm like, oh yeah, just the usual. But yeah, a couple months in Europe, and then we have boat crew stuff, an all-star jam maybe on the 70,000 Tons of Metal that I host. Some maybe a support slot with another band in Europe, and then we have a South American tour coming in the spring, and then we have festivals in Europe and maybe Japan. And only thing missing is the one thing that we really want to do is get back to North America. So I don't know if we can make it happen, but we sure are trying. Any decent agents out there want to see us back, we're in.
Just get in contact with Jeff at the aforementioned Facebook sites, and he will, of course, happily oblige. And so that's it. Everyone check out Suicide Society. Comes out in 3 days, of course, by the time you listen to this. just know that it's out on the 18th of September. And go get that either at iTunes or Amazon, or if you like those round physical MP3s called CDs, you might find one. Just look at UDR Music and go from there.
Right on. Thanks very much.
No problem, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Well, thanks for talking to me. And
there you go.
Taking me into your home. And I wish you the best, and hopefully we can talk again sometime.
Well, thank you so much, and take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.